give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it, this dream, into the palms of your hands. Mold it into the image of your most public self. Sculpt it into the shape of your most private need. Here on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning. Good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon. I want somebody to turn the lights up for me, please, because I'm a math teacher. I need to see the faces of the students, especially my group in the back over there from middle and high school. Can you hear me? Give me some lights. Let me some lights, somebody, please. I want to see faces. It's very difficult for young people to remain challenged and engaged if the lights are down after lunch, right? So easy to go to, so give me some lights, whoever you are, wherever you are, please. And I want to say that I have an interesting challenge, Dr. Franklin. Give the president of Morehouse a hand. He's a wonderful, wonderful educator, highly regarded, very much so. I have this challenge to some colleagues in the room of saying something that my 6th through 12th graders will appreciate, something that college and university people will appreciate, and getting all of you to think about where we are in our country. Oh, yeah, let me see those faces. Yeah, wake up, wherever you are. Come on. That's right. Get them back up. Good. Please, please. Very important. Students or colleagues, how many of you have ever heard of Daniel Pink in the book A Whole New Mind? I'm going to mention several books that you may think about. Daniel Pink is a thought leader in our country, and he's written a couple of books recently that a lot of people talk about. One is called A Whole New Mind. It talks about left and right brain thinking, and it says that, and the subtitle is Moving from the Information Age to the Conceptual Age. And it says this, that in previous times we were all most concerned about the left brain, about logical and analytical approaches to problem solving. But that today, this is much better. Today we must be as concerned about right brain thinking. We must be as concerned about that which is creative and out of the box as we are about the logical side. That sometimes kooky thinking that goes beyond what you might expect, will be important. In fact, what it says is that for those who will thrive in the 21st century, it will be critical that they understand how to use both sides of their brains much more so, and not simply be logical, but take other approaches. You will find in your STEM work that often the way to solving a problem is not the linear one step after another, but you do things that are different, putting things together that you never thought about, and all of a sudden you come up with a result that's very different. And so I started with poetry by Maya Angelou, a part of the poem that she read when President Clinton was inaugurated, at a time when probably none of the students were born. How many of you were born after 1980? Most of you, right? Right. So the fact is that you would not have been born. William Carlos Williams once said that it's difficult to find news in poetry, and yet men die miserably every day because of what's found there. It is significant that today, as I try to talk and say something to the 6th graders or the 12th graders or college students or people from industry or others, that we find ourselves at a point in time when people are saying, will America continue to be the leader in the free world? Will America continue to have its significant role in our country and beyond? And nothing, it appears, will be more critical to that future than educating young people. I begin with a statement from Du Bois, since I noticed in your symposium. Let me commend the institutions for coming together to talk about innovation, the Innovation Expo. When we think about history and we think about the amazing work done in the late 19th century and early 20th century with Du Bois and others, I saw where you're having a health disparities innovative conference also as a part of this. Interestingly enough, 3 years before that statement that he made about the cause of health disparities, Du Bois. How many of the students know who Du Bois is, W.B. Du Bois? Boas is really, is considered by many to be the most significant intellectual, African-American intellectual of the 20th century, certainly for the first half. And he earned a PhD from Harvard in 1895. In 1903, he wrote a book about the state of blacks. That's a part of what happened here in Atlanta, as they were talking about what's going to happen with these people who were the descendants of slaves and sometimes former slaves themselves. And in the book, he talks about the notion of the talented 10th. How many of the college students know what we mean by the talented 10th? The talented 10th. The idea was this, that if you get the smartest kids you can find, and you give them the best possible education, they can become leaders of others. That you needed to find those who were the best. Well, I would argue, students, you represent that talented 10th. Now, some of the people in the room know that by the 60s or the 70s, we were embarrassed by the term, the talented 10th. We just said, oh, just educate everybody. And so I have been someone saying for a long time that we need to go back to some things that were very significant 100 years ago. You see, when we think about athletics, we have no problem talking about the talented 10th. We know we talk about black basketball players as if they're little gods, all right? Or when we talk about American Idol, what are you thinking about? Entertainment, right? But if you're talking about physics or engineering, how often do you hear about some student of color? And so I would contend that whether somebody's going to be a business person or in science and technology, we need to talk about the very best. Not because we're not going to help other people, but you need some people who can be the ones everybody will look up to. And that's you. You are the ones people can look up to. Let me show you what he said. He said, can the masses of the Negro people in any possible way be more quickly raised than by the effort and example of this talented 10th, which he calls this aristocracy of talent and character? It is, ever was, and ever will be from the top down with the culture filters. The talented 10th rises and pulls all that are worth the saving up. This is the history of human progress. How then shall the leaders of a struggling people be trained and the hands of the risen few strengthened? There can be but one answer. The best and the brightest, the most capable of their youth, must be schooled in the colleges and universities of the land. Significant. That was in 1903 that he wrote that. And for years, places like Morehouse and Spelman, Fort Valley State, and other institutions were working to educate people to become teachers and doctors and lawyers. And now we are here today, and we find that we have more people educated in America than ever before. For example, in the late 60s, only about, what percent of Americans of all races do you think had a college education in 1965? Somebody give me an answer. What do you think? Somebody said 50. Anybody else? 30? 45? It was 10%. Only 10% of Americans in 1965 had a college education, all right? What percent of whites do you think had a college education? I have a Daniel Pink counter. When I said Daniel Pink, a whole new mind. Why do you think it is that middle and high school kids are far more excited at their approach than college students? Why is that? What do you think? Have you noticed that? If I talk to a group of elementary kids and I ask them a question, they go, me, me, me. You get to middle school, they still are doing like that. A little more cool, right? You get to high school, a little more laid back, right? Get to college. You check that out? Yeah. There's a question for you, all right? Because when you're in the third grade, you ought to be going, me, me, me too, all right? So the point is that only 11% of whites had a college education in 1965. What percent of blacks do you think? It was 2, okay? But here's the deal. You didn't have to have a college education to get a good job. You get my point? Today, you know you need much more education, all right? And we're going to talk about STEM and other areas. But here's the point. What percent of Americans today do you think have a college education? Let me hear, what is it? It's only 25%. All right? Now, when I talk to my friends, they say, oh, Freeman, that couldn't be the case because everybody I know has a college education. Yeah. You know, lawyers are around lawyers. Ministers are around ministers. Teachers are around teachers, right? People are around people like themselves. You get my point? But the fact is, most Americans of all races, here are the numbers. 2/3 of whites in America today, over 25, don't have a college education. 82% of blacks, we've gone from 2 to 17% educated, all right? And what's the fastest growing population in our country? Hispanic, only 11% with a college education, all right? Now, what percent of Asian Americans do you think? Yeah, we know that, don't we? It's 55% exactly. One of the reasons is a lot of people of Asian descent come here to grad school, and they stay, okay? By the way, my campus, UMBC, a lot of kids say it stands for you must be Chinese. We like that. We like that, all right? Some white kids were saying it first because they were saying, oh, these Chinese kids are getting in there, and we're not getting in. I said, well, it's like we like Berkeley. It's cool. It's fine, all right? So let me ask you a question. And what I'm doing now, I want you to understand, I'm using a whole new mind. If I sat behind that lectern, stood there, and just read, I'd lose the kids up here. You all would get sleepy. Maybe a few of the faculty might listen to me, all right? So I've got to do something to continue to connect with my 6th graders back there, and the 12th graders, and the college students, and colleagues. You with me? So work with me here, and let's see if we can do it. Asking questions can make a big difference. Hrabowski was a Nobel laureate. He said that when he was growing up in New York, all of his friends' parents would ask them at the end of a school day, what did you learn in school today? He said, not my Jewish mother. My Jewish mother would say, Izzy, did you ask a good question today? And he said the practice of encouraging his curiosity made him the great thinker he became, okay? So there's my first message for you, for 6th graders. And some people are using their technology back there. Stop using your technology, kids. I love you too much. Focus, 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 all right? My first message, learn to ask good questions. Whether you're going to be a business person or a scientist, whatever you're going to do, if you can ask good questions, you can get people thinking about the issue. So let me ask a few good questions. How many of you think that there are many more Chinese and Indian children who are brilliant, many more brilliant Chinese and Indian children than American children? How many of you? Many more Chinese. Okay, my kid with the technology. Why do you think that's the case? Okay, he said, give him a hand for the answer. They've been brought up to respect the teachers and education. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. When it comes to America, first-generation Americans do work very hard. It's true. Anybody disagree, though? So do you just agree that there are many more Chinese and Indian brilliant children than American children? Do you think American children are smart? Yeah, okay. So let's have a little argument about it. Anyway, it really is a mathematical question, though. I like your answers. It's a mathematical question. Listen to this. Everybody in the room should know this because this is the future for our world. You have 1.3 billion Chinese, all right? You've got 1.1 billion Indians. You put those two together, you have 2.4 billion people. Now, here's a math question. What is 10% of 2.4 billion? Smart American children. 240 million, you got it? How many Americans are there in total? 300 million. So those two countries have almost as many geniuses as we have citizens. Did you get that? Think about it. It's about numbers, okay? If you come to my campus where we have students from 150 countries, if you look at my PhD programs in computer science or in engineering, you will see that the vast majority of those are people who have come from other countries, mainly China and India, and they are well prepared, okay? Sometimes we have focus groups to see how much people work. And I always find that kids who move to this country study more, I don't care if they're from Nigeria or the islands or Russia, than kids who've lived here all their lives. I'll never forget asking the students, why do you think it is that they study more? And a young woman from Jamaica got up and said this. She said, for my American friends, college is grade 13. After high school, if you're lucky, you go to college, okay? She said, but for me, so she said, for them, it's like the icing on the cake. It's what you do after you finish high school. She said, but for me, if I don't excel, my younger brothers and sisters may not eat. That I've got to do so well that I can help my. So she said it's not about the icing on the cake. It's the very bread of life. And I got goosebumps thinking about the notion of people who understand that education is just that important. I asked the kids from middle and high school what they wanted me to talk about. They said, tell us why it's important to learn math and science, or why it's important to get an education, or why it's important to wear those uniforms, you said, right? Well, the reason they put you in the uniforms, let me tell you something. Let me tell you what's important. Let me tell you why that's so smart. If you all are wearing the same thing, then you don't have to worry about what your clothes look like, and you can focus more on what you can think to do, all right? Give the kids a hand for wearing uniforms, all right? They want the focus to be on the academic work. Now, the question is this. So where are we in this country if we've got two big giants who have so many brilliant people with, as the young man said, this attitude that says we've got to work hard? What does that mean? What is it that America has? Our critical characteristic that has led to so much success has been creativity, innovation, a willingness to ask the good and hard questions. One thing about American kids is usually they don't mind telling you what they really think, right? We actually on my campus have programs for students from Chinese universities who come to learn how to be kind of rebellious like American kids. I'm serious. So I'll be in the lecture and there'll be all these kids and I'll purposely say something that's outlandish, knowing it's wrong, to try to get them to say, no, that's not right. And they're so nice. They go, and I'll have to force them to disagree with me. And it's amazing because they've been trained to respect the teacher, which is great, but it's also good to be able to be an independent thinker, to agree and disagree, to agree. When I studied in Egypt, when I was at Hampton, my girlfriend, now wife, and I studied in Egypt, and one of the challenges with that British education system was if you could say exactly what the teacher said, you got an A+, all right? But if you disagreed, you'd be marked down. One of the things about America is we'll allow you to try different approaches and do it in different ways. How many of you love to read? How many of you love to read more than you love watching TV? This is a pretty nerdy group. I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. How many of you read a book for pleasure every week or two? How many of you work hard in your schools? How many of you study at least 4 hours a night? The high school students. How many of the high school and middle school students wait until the night before the test to study? Tell the truth. Look at that. That's an American phenomenon right there. That's my first problem, all right? That's the difference I see between my kids who come from Russia or from Nigeria, is that they are accustomed to studying long hours all the time. If you come to my campus, college students, anybody is going to be accustomed to working 3, 4, 5 hours a night. I'll never forget one of my students who was a young African-American woman said, Dr. Hrabowski, I don't want to stay in my room because my roommate's from another country and she looks at me funny, strangely. I said, what do you mean she looks at you strangely? She said, she just does. I said, maybe she thinks you look at her strangely. I said, stay this one semester and let's see how it goes. So we were having a focus group and all of a sudden, this young woman who was very upset with her roommate said, I'm so glad I stayed. She said, you know, I never knew a human being could work this hard. I was valedictorian in my school from Baltimore, and I was accustomed to working a couple of hours. I thought I was the hardest worker ever. She said the first half of the semester, I never saw my roommate sleep. I'd go to bed, she'd still be at her desk studying. I'd wake up in the morning, she was already at her desk studying. And so I got really intimidated. And so I said, I'm not going to bed till she goes to bed. So she said, I'd be doing like that. You know, when you sleep right, she said, I'd be pinching myself and putting water on my face. I was determined to stay up as long as, because she's not better than I am. And she said, sometimes I'd wake up and she'd still be sleeping. I'd jump to my desk and I'd start studying. She'd wake up and it'd make me feel so good to see, so she could see me where I'm at. She said, but guess what? I said, what? She said, my grades got better. I said, no, you don't mean the hard work paid off, right? I am telling you something. Nothing takes the place of hard work. Learning to work smart, not just sitting there, but learning to work hard. All of my life, I was inspired by a story by my mother and father, they always were telling me stories. You know, Southerners can tell good stories, right? So I'm from Baltimore. That's the upper South, I tell them. I mean, one day we think we're Philadelphia, the next day we're Richmond. But I mean, Atlanta's the deep South. Birmingham's real deep South, all right? So my dad would say, boy, you're so lucky. You got somebody to take you to school every day. When I was growing up in Selma, I had to walk 5 miles to school every day. I got so tired of my dad telling that story. I said, Dad, that's why your feet's so big. To which he responded, boy, don't you get smart with me, right? But my mama told me a story that really did embarrass me, and yet I tell it to CEOs and everybody else, and it relates to STEM education. She said that at age 12, kids, she had a choice every day of working in a hot cotton field in Wetumpka, Alabama, or going to work in a wealthy white home to help clean the house. And she wanted to see how rich white people lived. And the difference she saw was that there were books in the house. Only book in her house, a wonderful book, was the Bible. And so the lady was nice to her and said, Maggie, when you finish your work, you can go into the library and read. And mother would do that. And then the lady said, take the book home, bring it back when you finish. And all of a sudden, my mother's girlfriends, they were 12 and 13, got really upset. They said, Maggie, come on outside and play. And my mother would say, no, I want to stay here and read this book. And they would say, why would you want to keep your nose in a book? And she said, all of a sudden, she began to understand the growing difference between herself and her girlfriends. And here was the difference. This is something, a major point for the kids and college students to hear. She said the more she read, the better a reader she became. And the more proficient a reader she became, the more she enjoyed the experience. And the more she enjoyed reading, the more reading she did. The problem with her girlfriends was that they didn't read enough to get good at it, and so when they started reading, they would say, this is not interesting, and put it down. And when they had to read, she watched them using their lips, reading with their lips, and frowning. They hated the experience. It was at that point she knew exactly what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. Most noble work of all, to become a teacher. And she became this teacher of English. How many of you know who Zora Neale Hurston is? The book, Their Eyes Were Watching God. The book begins, ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. For some, they come in with the tide. For others, they sail forever on the horizon, never out of sight, never landing, until the watcher turns his head away in resignation. His dreams mocked to death by time. That is the life of men and women. She was talking about two groups of people like all of you. You got professionals here, faculty here, you got students here, the best, winning all kinds of competitions, and amazingly, reaching your dreams already, on your way. And then she was talking about all those people whose dreams are, in the words of Langston Hughes, forever deferred. The difference between the people who get dreams realized and those who don't, education. The better educated the person is in this country, the greater the number of opportunities, the greater the probability of success. Now, in our country right now, one of the biggest challenges we face is we're not educating enough people. We've got to get more kids through to education. Secondly, we're not producing enough people in science and engineering. And we need to be building the spirit of entrepreneurship. On my campus, we have one of these big Kauffman Foundation grants to infuse entrepreneurship into everything from economics all the way over to the arts, in science and engineering, to produce. And so a lot of my companies have come as a result of students in science and engineering, but who are doing things in biotechnology, cybersecurity. And so the entrepreneurship is very important. The innovation, the creativity is important. But the biggest challenge we face is that most kids either don't like to read first, or they don't like math. And there's my question. How many of you like math? How many of you love math? Ah, very nice. This is really a nerdy group. I should tell you that you'll hear it on that tape. I get goosebumps doing math. I always have. Okay, kids, here's a math problem for you. In the spirit of Daniel Pink. You ready? Yeah. College, you see that? You hear that? Right. All right. You all used to be like that. All right. Here's the problem. I'm getting goosebumps. Now, is Jamal here? Jamal may have had a presentation there, but he was really good with that problem. The kid who was working with me from Morehouse. Here's the problem. 29 children are in a class. 20 have dogs. By the way, when I finish this, do not holler out an answer. Got it? American kids guess and try to holler. Don't holler out an answer. 20 have dogs. 15 have cats. How many have both a dog and a cat? That's for everybody in the room, whether you're 50 or 10. 29 children in a class. 20 have dogs. 15 have cats. Son, I promise you, you don't have the answer yet, all right? You want to ask me a question, don't you? You want to ask a question? Okay, go ahead, sir. I said don't give me an answer. And your answer's wrong, okay? All right? Now, I told you not to give me an answer, didn't I? Wait a minute. Actually, you're on your way. You are very smart. All right? You're on your way. You're on your way, okay? You're not wrong. You're just not complete, okay? All right? American children, college students, even American professionals are accustomed to thinking, I got to get the answer like this. This is the way we do it. If you study the international math and science competition, Chair Math knows this, the difference between American approach and others is they will give fewer problems in greater depth, and you got to think about it. We give the kinds like this. And that's why we in America of all races end up in the bottom half on the international math and competition. We haven't had enough of the deeper problems that you can't just solve like that, okay? Now, the good news is I'm not going to give you the answer today. Aha. In the spirit of a whole, I just want you to think about it. I want you to dream about the math problem. You got that? And anybody who wants to can Google me, and you can give me how you think you'd go about it, but not just the answer. Give me the process for the problem. Here is the challenge we face to the adults in the room. I just chaired the National Academy's Committee on Underrepresentation in STEM. And the committee was established because Senators Clinton at the time, Hrabowski now, and the late Senator Kennedy were concerned that the big report, Rising Above the Gathering Storm, had talked about American competitiveness and STEM, but only gave one page of attention to the issue of the changing demographics in our country, the fact that the place is becoming more diverse, that over the next 30, 40 years, 1 in every 2 Americans will be of color. What's the impact of the growing diversity? More Hispanic kids, the black population. And what is interesting is that I was asked to chair this committee. We had people from Howard and Florida A&M to MIT and Harvard. We had a range of mathematicians, scientists, and others. And we spent over 2 years looking at the question, what is the impact of the growing diversity in America on the competitiveness of the country? And this is what we found. First of all, we already knew from the Rising Above the Gathering Storm that we didn't have enough people majoring in math and science. What percent of students in science and engineering with bachelors, 24 years old, say, what percent do you think we have in America who have degrees in science and engineering? What would you think? 15, anybody else? I'll tell you, in Europe it's about 12%. Ours is 6. Now, that's in general. What percent of blacks and Hispanics have college degrees in science and engineering? 2, okay? All right. Another question. I had the president of the Korean Institute of Technology on campus recently. 70% of the bachelors in that country are in science and engineering. 70. There is the difference, okay? So the question is, what can we do? It turns out that students of color are as interested in math and science as whites are. What percent of blacks who start in science and engineering in college do you think who started the freshman year, saying whether it's pre-med, engineering, whatever, what percent do you think actually graduate in science and engineering? From personal experience, you know that, right? A lot of people didn't make it, right? She said 5. It's not quite that bad. It's 20%. 20% of blacks and Hispanics make it. Watch this. What percent of whites do you think make it? It's only 32% for whites, okay? What percent of Asian Americans? It's 42%, okay? So let me hear what I'm saying for the adults in the room and college students. 2/3 of all Americans of all races who start with a major in science and engineering don't make it. And the first response from colleagues in the higher education community is it's a K through 12 problem. Now, it is true we need more kids like these kids. All these are science winners up there. Give them a hand in the back. These are smart young people. We're very proud of them. Very proud of them. Students, are you still working on that math problem? Okay, here's another math problem. If one of you can get the answer, I'll give you $1,000. Wait. Now look at this. It went from excitement to real excitement. Did you get that? All right. But if you don't get it, you got to give me $100. So my question is, how many people do I have to have back there who are wrong to make sure I come out ahead? It's another math problem. It's another math problem, and it's a very interesting answer you gave. Give her a hand for that, would you please? Very good, very good. here I am. Here's my point. I'm still not going to give you the answer. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You can email me and we can discuss it, okay? But I want you to continue to think about it. Going back, here is the point about K through 12. We do need to strengthen what's happening in K through 12. We know we need 10,000 more math and science teachers every year is the number we're talking about. But this is what I want the colleagues from the universities and government and industry to hear. The problem is much bigger than a K through 12 problem. In fact, our number one recommendation, the name of the report we did was expanding underrepresentation, expanding participation in math and science, STEM workforce at the crossroads. And here's the point. The higher the SATs of the American student, the higher the number, the larger the number of AP credits in math and science, the more selective the university, the greater the probability the student who starts in science is wiped out. That is the stunning finding of Sylvia Hurtado at UCLA based on our work and based on what they did. In other words, when kids go to the best of the places with the biggest names and start off in science as a freshman, they end up changing to another discipline within the first year. Now, somebody said, well, they just like the other discipline. Yeah, if I get an A in English and a D in chemistry, what am I going to do? I like English. You get my point? If you're only doing well in it, of course you're going to like it more. So my point is, for innovation, for STEM, the challenge we face is to rethink first-year science and engineering. The term used by NSF for first-year science, whether it's liberal arts colleges or wherever, is weed out courses. We know that every university expects most people in chemistry, in physics, not to make it. How do I know that? Because if you look at the number of seats in the second-year work that you plan for, it's always about a third of what the first-year work was. The assumption is just that, okay? And so the point I want you to think about is this. For the faculty and others, what my campus has worked to do is to rethink that work using course redesign. If you go to our page, you'll see everything about Chemistry Discovery Center. We have literally had a 50% increase in the number of students getting at least a B, and therefore a 50% increase in those who go on and complete majors in that. About 40% of our students in science of all races now go to PhD programs. In the Meyerhoff program, it's 80%. The finding of that report was that the HBCUs are the top 10 producers. However, not one of those institutes, and Morehouse and Spelman are in that group for sure. Give them a hand for that, please. But not one HBCU, not one university in general can say it produces even 10 students a year who go on and get PhDs in STEM. The largest number was 51, and that was combined Florida A&M and Florida State. So Hampton and Howard and Morehouse and Spelman and NC, A&T, and Tuskegee, and a couple others. Now, my campus was the leading predominantly white university. Morehouse produced 33, we produced 24. But that's 02 to 06. That's kids who finished PhDs. For 07 to 12, our numbers, we're at 75. We believe we have gone ahead of every HBCU in producing African Americans who go on and get PhDs in science with about 12 to 15 a year. Give my faculty a hand for that. It's a big deal. And the reason, the two or three things, building community among the students, getting students to help each other, not being cutthroat, using the technology, having faculty who are really connected to the work, learning analytics faculty, understanding who makes it right now, using data warehousing to determine who is making it right now in the first 2 or 3 courses of calculus or in physics or whatever. What can we say about SATs, about grades, about rigor of work, about attitude? How do we use that in shaping what we need to do to help more students to succeed? So being able to look beyond the work itself. And then for students, my students can use the Blackboard course management system and on any given day say how the amount of work they put in, the effort, relates to where they fit in the classroom. In other words, if they've only studied about 10 hours that week, they'll look and see where they fit with the effort. They have to put that down. Then they look and see what their grades are. And what they see is the more effort there is, and the more they work with other people, the better it is. And so what you'll see as I show you this, and I'm going to show you very quickly, you'll hear this. This is first year chemistry. If you go to my Chemistry Discovery Center, you know, usually it's like this. Everybody's quiet and people work. Listen to this and just look. It's loud. They're working in groups. They're using technology. They're using problems from the biotech companies on campus. They're fighting about the work. but their grade depends on the grade of the whole group. They hate the idea because they want to be individuals. They'll say, I got a 5 in AP chemistry. I don't need anybody. But in science and engineering, in the business community, in problem solving, you need to learn to work in teams. That's the point I'm making. The idea of teamwork, supporting other people, using technology, collaboration at the end of all of it. I close with the thought that it never occurred to me as a little black kid in Birmingham, loving math, that one day I would be president of a university with kids from 150 countries. And it never occurred to me that we could figure out how to have more people of color, like you, excelling in math and science, wanting to get PhDs. The significance of the PhD, researchers, is that you will do work that may help people you will never see. It's something noble. And with health disparities, the big issues, you ask me why STEM areas, whether you're talking about helping to defend our country in defense and intelligence, or trying to solve all the health problems of anti-cancer strategies, or looking at global warming, or looking at energy issues, science and tech are at the base of all of those. And for the business students, the idea of creating companies to generate revenues is so important. The only way we've been able to generate jobs is by generating companies coming out of a science and tech base. So at the heart of America and its future, whether talking about its intelligence future, its defense issues, all the way over to its health, the fact is we need many more people like you with math and science. And so my challenge, students, is that you dream about the possibilities, that you throw open the idea that you don't know how far you can go, that you do what I did. When I saw my first black PhD at Tuskegee, I was 13. The guy came in and put a problem on the board, and nobody could solve it. I said, who is that man? He was like Superman to me. He was so smart. And I said, they said he's Dr. So. I said, he's not a physician. They said, he's a PhD. I said, what's a PhD? They said, that's the highest degree you can get. I said, I'm going to get a PhD. So at 13, I'd look at my little fat face in the mirror, loving blueberry pie and math, and I would say, good morning, Dr. Hrabowski. Every day. My girlfriend heard me in college. She said, you're crazy. That way, But I saw it. I want you, whether you're 12 or 20, to see it. I want you to feel, I can do this. I want you to know nobody can define you but you. All right? I want you to know that you are brilliant, because brilliant means you're excited about ideas. You can ask questions. You'll work your butt off to be the best you can be, and you will succeed. It makes all the difference in the world. And so I challenge you to watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Habits, they become your character. I love it. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Very nice. Wonderful. Really nice. Very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very impressive, guys. Very impressive. That's a good teacher back there. She's taught them that saying. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Once again, can we have another round of applause for Dr. Hrabowski, please? Do we have any questions really quick for Dr. Hrabowski?
Questions? Yes, sir. Yes. Start there. Okay, young people, you've been so impressive. You learn in college. You do not talk when others are talking. You are so impressive. You're the best in America. Listen attentively to this question. Tell me, use the microphone and state your name. Mm-hmm. You might just have to shout now. And I'll repeat it. Yes. Yes. You can ask me a question. Don't give me an answer. If you want to ask a question, you can. I don't want the answer now. No. I want you to keep reflecting. One of the things about Americans in problem solving, did you all notice? You didn't start trying to work together. You just were on your own, right? Real problem solving in the business community, in science, requires people to start collaborating. What you ought to do from different colleges is discuss it, okay, and then send me your explanation of how you got it as a group, right? Because the group will always be wiser than the individual, okay? Use group work and then send me some answers. Google me and do it, okay? Questions? Yes, sir. Right, the age of silence. Hrabowski. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And working smart? Good, good. It's a great question. What is the difference between, give him a hand for that question. It's a good question. The difference between hard work and working smart. Somebody can work hard and simply keep going over the same material without learning anything new or without even understanding the material. Sometimes working smart is knowing when you need help. All right? Working smart means working with other people so that you can take your level of understanding and theirs and go to the next level. And most important, working smart means looking to understand what you understand well and what you don't, and then figuring out how you need to get to somebody else to help you in figuring out what you really don't know so you can focus on that. Okay? Good question, though. Yes. Hi.
Good afternoon. My name is Ebony Quick. I'm a senior marketing major at Fort Valley State University. My question to you was about the math and technology. Growing up, I was really interested in it, and it came at a point in time where I felt like it was boring. How do you propose that we keep students interested and involved?
Give her a hand. Great
Really
question.
hard.
Great question. I mean, this is the point my campus is talking about in K through 12, but in university life. I mean, how many adults in the room know that most kids in college and in high school and in middle school are bored? Tell the truth. If you know anything about this generation, you know that they are multitasking all the time. They're still back there using that technology, all right? You know, and I understand, because I'd be doing the same thing. My teachers either loved me or hated me, I promise you that. But here's the point. If we simply stand in front of a place and lecture, most people are bored. Now, some may do it because they want to get to the goal. But for kids, we've got to find ways of pulling them into the work, empowering them to be active learners. You saw what I was showing with my chemistry discovery? They have responsibilities. Somebody's a project manager, somebody's a blogger, and they are doing the work. I mean, too often in America, at every level, we have this format of people sitting back, listening passively while the professor does this. When we need to find ways, this is what we mean by course redesign in my University System of Maryland and on my campus. Redesigning courses not just in science and math, but across to the humanities and social sciences now, because we find that students get more engaged, they spend more time working, they actually do much better. We need much more of that. And then finally, the challenge in America in K through 12 is we will say, I taught you. So, okay, I taught you how to solve something called a differential equation. You start learning about differential equations, and all of a sudden, you say, oh, he's really smart, he sounds really good. Then I give you a test on it. And most of you flunk it. The question I have to ask is, did I really teach it? I didn't teach it if you didn't learn it, all right? And the challenge is too often we say we've taught something. And the other point is people learn in different ways. People have different approaches, right? We've got to find ways of being more innovative in the teaching process and then looking carefully at who's learning it and who's not. That's it. Great question.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Come on. Somebody active question. Come on now. Ask me a good question. Otherwise, I'm going to leave here saying Georgia students are really kind of, quiet, passive. As we go, I want you to give, is it Fort Valley State?
Yes.
You know, I've noticed Fort Valley State and Auburn State, I see them in Abercrombie. They do just like Boys and Spence. I mean, they are active. Give them a hand, both campuses. I'm very impressed. But at Abercrombie, I'm very, Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Janaea Johnson. I'm a senior business management major with a minor in marketing.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you, in your career, what have been some failures and some obstacles that you have had to overcome, and what advice would you give to students now if they have obstacles that they need to overcome?
Great question. One of my challenges was that I sometimes was right but not wise. For example, if throughout school, if I saw where the teacher was making a mistake, I would just holler out, "You wrong," and that was dumb. He may have had a good point that the man was not up to date, but he was not being wise in the approach. All right. The other point is that in terms of failure, everybody does not do well at some point. Okay, and for me, a lot of the times it had to do with not bringing it, as an administrator, not bringing enough people into the decision making, and knowing we were doing the right thing, but I forgot to consult with certain people. And even if it's the right thing, if people don't feel that they're consulted with, they will tear your idea apart. I had to learn to stop, give it more time, let people get a chance to think about it, and let them come up with the best approach rather than 2 or 3 of us saying, yeah, let's move ahead. And so I'd get knocked down with the idea, get really upset. The key is everybody in here gets knocked down sometime. The key is resilience. The real winner is not somebody who doesn't have a difficult time. All of us have difficult times at different points. The significance is resilience. When you get knocked down, you get back up. How many of you have had a course where you, in the middle of the semester in a test, you didn't do well on the test? Let me see your hands, especially in college, right? The point is you don't take the time just to worry about it. You say, okay, what do I do about it? How do I get back up? That's the point, resilience. Yes, sir.
How you doing? My name is Andre Joseph, transfer sophomore, Albany State University.
Okay.
Business Information System major.
Good.
We talked about this earlier with people, their definition of being successful. I just want to know what's your definition. What's your personal definition? Of
Right.
successful?
I think we are successful in life when, first of all, we've got people who care about us and people we care about. I mean, I think that love thing is very important, family and friends. And when we know how to, quite frankly, take care of ourselves. When I tell my college students, you really want to get to the point where you got the skills so you can make sure you don't have to rely on your parents. You can make it yourself. You know what I tell my parents when they are deciding whether to come to UMBC or not for their kids? I say, listen, if your son or daughter comes to UMBC and they take our advice, we promise you when they graduate, they will not have to come home and live with you. Now, college students, you may think your mom and daddy want you to come home and live with you. They don't, all right? They already have plans on your room, okay? All right, and they do not want you coming in so you can go at 2 o'clock in the morning saying you're grown, all right? They're going to say you got to live by their rules. You won't want to be at home. You want to be on your own. So success is really being able to take care of yourself. But for me, it's not just taking care of yourself. Success means you've done well enough with yourself, you can help somebody who's not even a part of your family. To me, it's about getting beyond self and family. But to take care of other people, help other people, you got to first. You got to get family and yourself together through education. Yes.
How's it going? My name is Zali White III. I'm a junior chemistry and mathematics major here at Morehouse College. And I have a couple pressing issues that I would like to ask about. But one thing definitely that I would really like to ask about is when you showed the video of the chemistry course, and I think that's first year, I was wondering, have you integrated that into later curriculum? And then also, how do you create that atmosphere of collaborating and things like that? We're at an institution like Morehouse, which is very great, and we have good things going on here, where sometimes it's more traditional. As a student, how would you propose that to those in power and really affect that change?
Most places are still traditional. The point that we're making, and we're working with a lot of places on it, is that the traditional way works for a certain group of students who will do what they need to do. They're well prepared. But the real question for every institution in high school or college is, how do we help the average student to succeed? You know, the first question I ask every university is, okay, I've just told you that nationally 20% of the students who start in science engineering for blacks graduate. Most colleges have never looked over a 10-year period to say, okay, we had 1,000 students to try it, and of that 1,000, 200 graduated. So understanding the data first and what they're going to find at any college, I don't care if it's liberal arts college, research, whatever it is, most people don't make it in math and science. Then the next question is, what are the basic skills one needs to make it? I mean, how do we analyze, using learning analytics, how do we analyze who has succeeded so far? Test scores, grades, attitude, and all those things. And then the third point, and this is where it gets to your first part of your question, what we did with Meyerhoff in the summer in building community worked so well that my white students said, we want more of that. It looks like they're doing so much better, so it was great. So they were saying, we need opportunities to work in groups if that's what it takes to make it in organic chemistry. And so more and more courses are being redesigned. Faculty are getting opportunities to think about other ways of teaching other than lecturing the whole time. And quite frankly, we are experimenting with grants from Gates and Howard Hughes and NSF on those strategies that are most effective, because innovation means asking questions you've not asked before, looking at things differently from the way they've gone before, being kooky enough to say, well, imagine 80% of the students actually getting at least a B. Because we tend to think if you got most students getting an A and B, it means the rigor is not what it needs to be. Now, what's interesting is some of my colleagues in chemistry, when we had these higher grades, challenged and said that's because the work is not as difficult as it needs to be. Well, we actually use ACS standards. We made the rigor even higher. So that's what we've got to be much more innovative in the approach to the work. And and I think most campuses are looking to do that. The purpose of this conference for faculty and others is to think differently about how we work with K through 12 on the one hand and get them involved. It's great that they're here to see what you all are doing. And secondly, how do we rethink the first couple of years of science and engineering? Because if you're seniors, you know this, whether it's in business, technology, whatever. If you do really well in the first 2 years of work, you know how to study there. You're on your way. I mean, even though the coursework gets harder, you have learned how to work in college, and you're okay. It's the first 2 years, if you think about students who didn't make it, of learning how to study, how to work hard, how to work in groups. That makes the difference. Good questions. Thank you. Uh-huh.
Hello, my name is Mbonia Myers. I'm a junior accounting major from Fort Valley State University. I was wondering that in addition to discussions and group work and hard working with studying, are there any other creative suggestions that you have to enhance student learning?
Great question. I would say the spaces on a campus, we are now evaluating different spaces and changing the structure literally by making furniture and spaces more flexible, because students said, you want us to do more of this, and yet there's not enough places where we can, because if everything looks like this, it's hard to work in a group, right? So we are really tearing up spaces in order to give more flexibility to it. That's number one. The other point that you'll learn, whether it's in business or in STEM, is that you learn to do by doing. I mean, what makes the difference is undergrad research, all right, or practical experiences. Whether my students are in economics or in technology, working at NSA or working at Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, SAIC, BAE Systems, I mean, makes all the difference in the world, because then they take the experience and relate it to the classroom. There's nothing, or if they're in a lab at NIH or at Hopkins or on my campus, taking the work that's real life, whether it's in computing or in chemistry, and bringing it back to the classroom brings the classroom work to life. And it's the learning about how it connects to life. That's what those kids were saying. Tell us how STEM relates to real life. We need more examples at every level of the connection between math, science, whatever, and real life. Very important.
Thank you.
Thank you. Uh-huh.
Hello, Dr. Hrabowski. My name is Jamal Gildersleeve. I'm a senior math major here at Morehouse College, also Bachelor of Science. And I also wanted to know, what do you think takes to make a real difference in the world? We hear every day about the problems in the world, and a lot of them can be solved by STEM majors in particular. And we see a lot of talks, some TED Talks and things of that nature. But what do you think does it take to make a true visual and measurable difference in our world today?
Well, there's no doubt that this STEM part is an important part of it. We're working with the Department of Defense that says America's trying to win the war right now. I mean, win the peace. It's a very interesting concept. That we've won the war in many cases, and they said winning the peace means that when Americans leave, for example, that the people who are native there will still have a connection to our country or to democracy itself. There are two items that people really need if we're going to win the peace, and it was really surprising to hear what they were. One was clean water that you cannot, all right? And the second was medical care, if you can train people that way. I mean, that's for very human needs. Do you know the one reason that Americans now are living almost twice as long as they did 100 years ago? When Du Bois wrote this book in 1905, in 1903, what do you think the average age of Americans was?
60.
It was 40. How many Americans in here today are over 40? Tell the truth. Raise your hands. All of them would be dead now, and I'd be dead twice, all right? All right, that's how different we were in 1900. Today, what do you think it is?
About 70.
It's almost 80. It's 80 for women, and of course, women live longer than men. We know that. But late 70s for men even. All right? What's the one reason, what's the most important reason they're living longer? We're living longer. What'd you say?
Water.
Water. The sewage system. This is from the National Academy of Engineering. The sewage system led to clean water. You get my point? Before the sewage system, even when you look, when they were writing the Constitution, when they were doing everything in Philadelphia, they'd have to stop because there was a fever. If you don't have clean water, people get sick and die. All right? Okay, so that's the basic level. But then you get to what I would call really the essence of what it means to be human. And this is what I would say, that we all need much more grounding in the humanities and social sciences, whether we're going to be doctors or teachers or whatever, because we have to understand what it really means to connect to other people. The fact is 40% of our country are children of all races who can't read. And if they cannot read, they don't have a future in this country. That's the biggest challenge that we face. That's black and white. Millions of children, if they can learn to read. I just read something said by Cesar Chavez. I was in Texas. He said, if you teach a child to read, you can never take it from him. Once a child learns to read, that child always has that, and you can build on the reading. But without the reading, absolutely not. And that would be, for me, the most important thing. Okay?
Thank
Great
you, sir.
question. Thank you. Okay? Question?
How you doing? My name's Tracy Adams. I'm a junior biology major, public health minor from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm at Morehouse College. And earlier you had said 20% of students, freshmen, start as STEM majors. Only 20% make it to commencement with that same degree.
To a bachelor's.
And last year I learned of a little pyramid called Bloom's taxonomy. I feel do you think, I feel like in first year, all the teachers really stress acquisition of knowledge, and they just stop right there. Do you feel they should try and move higher up that?
No, I don't think it's the case that I think that even in traditional education, people are trying to teach people how to think. I really do. In math, in computer science, in chemistry, and in those areas, and of course in literature and other areas. I think in colleges, people are learning how to think much more so than in high school. In high school, it's more formulaic. I always tell people, when they say, oh, the standardized tests are not important. Standardized tests are very important. And people say, oh, the SAT is culturally biased. And I said, well, I wrote the math questions. I think I'm black. I don't think I'm biased, all right? So we have to learn to do those tests, and they give you a good way of getting a sense of the basic math and reading skills. But in college students, you're going to be taught to think. So if I give you a math test, 5 problems, 3 you've had before, 2 I'll change. And unless you can think critically, you're going to be lost. See what I'm saying? So it's not that. It's just that we need ways of building group work so that the students will think about how the problem might be changed. What if the professor asked it this way or that way? So when they get to the test, they're not surprised because it doesn't look exactly like what you had before. So that's the issue. That's the issue. How do we help students to think critically in that first year?
I appreciate you.
Question? Is that it? All right. Okay, folks. All right. I want you to do with these. Let me just say this. I want you to do what the high school and 6th graders. I want you to notice this thing says: thoughts, words, actions, habits, character, destiny. Say it with me. Thoughts, words, actions, habits, character, destiny. It's anonymous. I can't find who said it, but thoughts, words, actions, habits, character, destiny. In the spirit of Morehouse, Dr. Franklin would appreciate my saying this. I tell my students, your character has everything to do with what you do when you don't think anybody can see you, when your mama's not there. You get what I'm saying? When you think you can get away with something, that's the essence of who you are, your character. So again, one more time, thoughts, words, actions, habits, character, destiny. Okay, stand up. We're going to say that, and then I'm going to give you a poem to say quickly, and we're through. Okay, here we go. Come on up. Get up. Don't take your time. Get up, jump up, and look like you mean it. All right? Watch your thoughts, they become your. Watch your words, they become your. Watch your actions, they become your. Watch your habits, they become your. Watch your character, it becomes your. Okay, now this poem, this is the one I learned all my life, and my house scholars say this every time we're together. As I repeat a line, you repeat after me. It's from Langston Hughes. I want you to think about who you're going to be. My technology guy, think about a PhD in computer science. You got it? All of you, think about PhDs and MDs and engineering and business people, okay? Dream about it. And when we finish the poem, I want you to put your hands together and go like this. Focus, focus, focus. You got it? On my campus, they'll do like that at me. That means because if you get too stretched out, you got to be focused to get it done. You got it? Here we go. Repeat the line after me. Hold fast to dreams. For if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams. For when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. Focus, focus, focus. Dream on, young people. Dream on. Thank you.